James Lee.
Okay. This is a land acknowledgement as well as a general statement from us.
That's great. This is great. Wonderful. Exactly what I wanted.
This land was This land was the home of Anishinaabe people. The Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi all had villages in the rivers of southeast Michigan. The Huron River was home to the ancestors of the non-Mississippi Huron and the Potawatomis, as well as mined the were removed from the reserve on the Huron River in 1842. We also rally today on the steps of a building titled after James B. Angel, who began an era of Asian exclusion upon collaborating on and signing the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. We also acknowledge that this university is an imperialist force, drenched with exclusionary values, and an institution that is willing to allow us to rally but unwilling to act. We understand decolonizing and anti-imperialism work as a constant, ongoing, internal and external project that we are committed to always. All right. I'm done.
Thank you, James. I just want to do a quick check of volume. So, for those in the back, can you hear me like this? Yeah. I don't know what that means. More. Louder. How about now? Yes? If you can hear me, say no war on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. No war! Alright, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that chopper is making things a bit louder. If you ever need any of us to be louder, in the back, let's do just a lot of like this, right? I'm a little concerned about this mic's like screechiness. We're good? Okay. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'll be emceeing the event today. My name's Amy Teskergis. I'm an undergrad here at U of M. I've been told to stand here. I'll be quick, but I did just want to get a quick story off my chest. When I was 6 years old, I went to my first ever protest. There are photos of me at age like 6, I'm 20 now, holding up a sign that says, "No war on Iran," in DC in 2006. My identity as an Iranian American has been sort of tumultuous in the 14 years since then, but what has not changed is the fact that we are still here standing saying not only no war on Iran, but we are telling the United States, stop militarization in the Middle East, stop US imperialism across the globe, and listen to the American people and stop putting troops around the world. So that's what we're here doing today. I think the difference from the early 2000s and now is that the American people have learned their lessons. Or if they didn't know before, which most of us did, they definitely know now. We're gonna make sure that this ends right here and right now. So I know that the situation is confusing. A lot has happened in the last 14 years and many of the years prior. So just to kick us off, we have Juan Cole. He's a professor of history here at the University of Michigan, and also just a commentator on the Middle East and South Asia in general. He has a really good understanding of why the situation is the way it is, why the United States is able to continue bullying Iran and other countries in the region, and he's just going to give us all sort of a rundown of how we got here. So, Juan.
No war for oil. Friends, we have a mad bomber in the White House. We have somebody who's erratic. And we have a Secretary of Defense who's a lobbyist for the arms industry. We have a Secretary of State who is a Kansas oil man. The three of them together are making war on our climate and on the Middle East. Friends, the Trump administration did not strike Iran for the first time this week. The Trump administration has had Iran under the severest economic blockade in modern history for 19 months. The United States had a treaty with Iran that Iran would mothball 80% of its nuclear enrichment program, which was a civilian program for making electricity. in return for which the world, for the United States, the rest of the world would welcome Iran back into the world economy. Trump breached that treaty, and then he put so many sanctions on Iran, in addition to which he strong-armed Japan, South Korea, India into not buying Iranian oil. 70% of Iran's economy is oil dependent. Trump has put a pillow over the baby of Iran in its crib, attempting to strangle the lives of people. It's to the point where people don't have money to buy medicine for their relatives. What would a country do if it's under that kind of economic strangulation that Trump has applied to Iran? Of course, it's going to find ways to hit back. Trump has created this tension. He thinks that if you hit Iran in these economic ways with sanctions, that in the end, Iran will put its head down. Iran was on the verge of being welcomed into the world community, it was going to buy Boeing jets. It would have been open to European and American economic pressure because it was part of the world community. Trump put them in a corner. Friends, the United States is at war with Iran. It's trying to destroy people's lives. To be against war with Iran does not mean being pro-regime. It doesn't mean we approve of the government of Iran. It is an American tradition to dissent when our government does something wrong. When the U.S. government went to war against Mexico in the 1840s, Ralph Waldo Emerson went to see Henry David Thoreau in jail because Thoreau refused to pay taxes to support that war against Mexico. And Emerson asked Thoreau, he said, "What are you doing in there, Henry David?" And Thoreau said, "Ralph, what are you doing out there? We have to make a stand against an unjust war." The killing of General Soleimani was not the killing just of a bad guy. It was an assassination. Gerald Ford, who went here, I think he's known around these parts, outlawed assassinations. We have a rogue government. It's a government we cannot trust with our security or our lives. And the way forward with Iran is the way of peace, not of war. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Cole. The audio is way better now, isn't it? We can all hear, right? Okay, so really quickly, I got so caught up with an unrelated thing that I forgot to say what I was actually going to say. Many of you may have heard about President Trump's statement this morning, right? Just a show of hands, has anyone heard or read about it? Yeah, so basically, the United States assassinated a foreign leader. President Trump tweeted a few days ago threats to hurt Iranian civilians, and then today said that he's glad to see Iran is stepping down, and I quote, "The United States is ready to embrace peace with all who seek it." So obviously we all here are very, very happy that it seems like the US is avoiding a head-to-head war with Iran, but the fact of the matter is that that's not just what this demonstration is about. What we are here for is to put an end to US imperialism. It is to put an end to US militarization both abroad and at home. And it is to build an anti-war movement in this country that is strong enough such that the United States cannot go around doing things like what it just did. And it's also to make sure that although he sounds like he doesn't want to go to war, the fact of the matter is that does not equal non-escalation, right? So many of the things that Trump said in his speech was that sanctions were going to go way up, which is definitely going to hurt the Iranian people even more than it already has. He said that he wants NATO to get involved in the region. He said that military in the region is definitely going to be on high alert. And all of those things, to me, signal continued destabilization in the region. So just wanted to clarify that point for anyone who's confused. This is still highly relevant, highly relevant. And as Americans and as Michiganders that have a lot of eyes on us in 2020, I'm just really glad that we're all here. So to speak more on that point, a lot of us here understand this is not just an Iran issue, this is a Middle East issue, right? And a lot of Arab Americans know very well the work that the United States has done in the Middle East. So to speak on that, we have the president of the Arab Student Association here at the University of Michigan, Arwa Gayar, is going to speak a little bit on what this means to her and her community.
Hello, everyone. I speak today not only as the co-president of the Arab Student Association, but particularly to convey a message from our Iraqi members, many of who could not speak today due to the very real consequences they could face for speaking on the topic, potentially even jeopardizing their ability to return home. The U.S. government's continued intervention in the Middle East in the name of democratic values is and has been a facade, as seen when Trump deliberately refused to remove U.S. troops from Iraq, even after a unanimous vote from the Iraqi parliament to do so. Iraq continues to recover from the American invasion in 2003, and now faces the reality of being used as a battlefield for the U.S. and Iran's proxy war. The suffering and loss of Iraqi lives at the expense of political power battles is vile and unjust. The disregard for civilians in the Middle East and in the midst of U.S. foreign policies continues at an unparalleled level. This is a war between governments, not the Iranian, Iraqi, or American people. However, they will be the ones to pay the price. I already see members of my community questioning if they can return back to their home and see their families in the coming months. Many of us who are already forced to leave our own home countries due to U.S.'s history of imperialism, of American wars in the Middle East, and legacies of colonialism. We now find the security of our families unknown once more. We find that the country we sought refuge in continues to further the instability in our homes at the expense of our families' lives and safety. And as an American, and as an Arab American, I will continue to denounce these assassinations, because international human rights are universal, and the United States is not above these obligations. And their violation of international law was not only utterly careless, reckless, and illegal, but it is also done with the disregard of the lives in the Middle East that will be lost. And this is not an oversight. It is through the dehumanization and indifference to Arab and Middle Eastern lives that this could be done, and it needs to stop. I have not yet seen a time in my life where the U.S. has not exerted self-granted powers to further its influence in the Middle East and expand its imperialist agenda. I have not yet lived in a time where Iraq has seen peace without American intervention. And it is with this that I stand today asking for no war in Iran, because I hope to see a time where the country I am a citizen of does not jeopardize the lives of my community around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Arwa. As a lot of you know, the United States has been at war for the vast majority of its history. And there have been movements throughout the history of this country to potentially stop that from being a thing. I do want to harken back to the meaning of what we're doing on this campus here at the University of Michigan, because when you look back on anti-war movements throughout our history, especially with Vietnam, many of them got a lot of energy from college campuses. So just like shout out to you all. But the reason why I'm reminding us of history is because today we have an individual who has lived through much of it and would like to speak to why we should try the absolute hardest that we can to not repeat it. So Stan Goff is a Vietnam veteran. He was had a career in the U.S. Army Special Operations, and he is an ardent anti-war activist. So yeah, without further ado, Stan.
I want to thank the organizers and thank you for coming out here and making snot signals in the cold to stop the war. On my 19th birthday, I went to Vietnam. And when I was 32, when I was in Vietnam, I made war on poor people. When I was 32, I went to Guatemala for the last coup there, and we were covertly making war on poor people. Same year, I went to Grenada, where we attacked poor people. When I was 34, I went to El Salvador, where we were secretly making war on poor people. When I was 39, I went to Peru, same deal, covert war on poor people. When I was 40, I went to Colombia, secret U.S. war on poor people. When I was 42, I went to Somalia, where we attacked poor people. When I was 43, I went to Haiti so we could ensure that poor people couldn't have their own government. When I was 44, I retired from the Army, and I thought I'd leave a quarter century of this militarism behind me. Then when I was 50, circumstance and conscience forced me to oppose a war in Iran, in Iraq, and Afghanistan. When I was 52, 2 of my children went to that war. And I have a grandchild now that's old enough to be in the military. When I was 57, the anti-war movement was switched off after the election of a Democrat. By the time I was 60, the Democrat had spread the war to 6 countries and consolidated the overwhelming executive power that was inherited by that Mar-a-Lago fool. Or reproduce each other. When I was 65, the U.S. elected a rapist and a thief, or you could call him a rapist in chief, as the President of the United States. I'm 68 now, and it looks like we're going back to where I was 52 years old to go against a war in Iraq. And that's where this is going to take place. They will attack Iranians in Iraq. And when they do that, there's going to be a sack full of floating factions they have to fight too, because that's how it actually works. You know how we know that? Because we did this 17 fucking years ago. I'm sorry, folks. My son is in Erbil. How many generations of this obscenity are we going to put up with? The sky over Argentina is darkening right now from the fires in Australia. And we're starting a war. It's like, is this the price that the world has to pay so Donald Trump can prove his masculinity? Or so we can prop up a failing economy with war production? The whole military thing, this whole military America thing has got to be disrupted. It's got to be disrupted once and for all. It's got to be ripped out by the roots. And that means we're going to have to get rid of this capitalism America thing too. I'm sorry. It really starts to feel like we need to be preparing something on the order of a general strike. It's sure enough time to get this sack of shit out of the White House. I know that. And not replace him with another war lover. That's not the solution. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that I got to be here. We're in a struggle right now to salvage the world from ruin for our children and our grandchildren. And now what we've got to do is we've got to spend our time and energy, instead of addressing that problem, stopping another war. It's like Iran's not our enemy. Iran's not our enemy. Our enemy's right here. That's all. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, just a quick note. When I had asked Stan to speak, what he told me was, I really don't want to, but I have to, don't I? Because we all have to. And yeah, right? Yeah, cheers for Stan. So up next, we have Zainab El-Kolali. She's an Ann Arbor City Commissioner, the youngest Ann Arbor City Commissioner, I hear. She's also an Iranian American and is going to speak a bit on her identity and why it matters to be both American and Iranian and oppose the war in Iran. So, Zainab.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all. My name is Zainab and I stand before you here on these steps an unapologetic Iranian Arab American. I'd first like to thank my friends and co-organizers for, in essence, risking their lives for being here, or risking their families' lives overseas. What we don't understand is that this problem did not originate like 2 weeks ago, nor was it in 2003 or 1955. It started with the rise of the US Industrial Revolution. We decided that instead of getting our own resources, that we would enter the lands of brown people and take theirs instead at a much lower price. That's not okay, and it never will be. Essentially, we put oil over human lives, and it's not archaic, it's not something that the United States has grown past, it's something that we continue to do today. This assassination was not about avenging innocent Sunni Muslims and Syrians. This was about furthering a United States agenda. It will always be about furthering a United States agenda. This agenda that we have is not unique. In fact, Western imperialist powers all have the same one, but we have a greater capacity. We have the greatest military. We have the greatest capacity to brainwash people thinking that they are serving their country when in fact they are harming innocent people. We need to end imperialism and colonialism. This is not some 19th century thing that we learn about in textbooks in history class. This is something that the United States government continues to exacerbate. Clearly, this is an issue very dear to my heart. And frankly, this imperialism, this surveillance, this system that puts me and my family and Iran in danger for just being here, speaking here, it's a lot more thorough